Hi, everyone. This is number 4 in the series of Awaken with Joy, Remembering Who You Are and What is a Nice Jewish Girl Doing Here. And this is Iriana, and I'm so happy to be sharing with you again. And I've been asking Spirit to kind of give me a little bit of maybe a format to put this in to make sense out of it. And I listened to the last one, and it made sense, so I'm not very upset about that, but I still, a little structure. So what I've decided is that I'll continue on with my story, and at the same time, I'm going to add in the perspective I have now spiritually from each segment. And I kind of did that in the last one, but I think it'll be a little bit more structured now if I make that as my intention. So that's my plan for the moment. We shall see how long that lasts. And I'm going to go on now and see where I need to pick up. So I kind of left off talking about my mother and that loneliness. And of course, that's the piece that we all deal with on this planet, because in this situation we have found ourselves in, I'll use other words later, but right now I'll just use the word situation. We have the belief that we're supposed to have companionship, we're supposed to have love, we're supposed to have everything provided for us to make us happy. I mean, that is really what we were programmed with. And I really do get, after talking to a lot of young clients, that they have a bit more insight into life than we did, certainly in my age group, because we didn't know anything, really. I have to say, we as certainly, I'm not talking about education-wise, or of course there were a lot of bright people and a lot of people who did wonderful things, but as far as spiritually, there was not much awareness. I grew up with, as I've mentioned this, very little awareness. I really, really have to say, I had no clue. And I read everything. I didn't mention that in any of the other recordings, I don't think, but I was an avid reader. And my grandmother's house was behind a main street, so I could walk, as I got older, to many places, and movie theaters and restaurants. There was so much to choose from, and there was a wonderful library not far from there. I really don't remember the distance or even what it looked like, but I kind of get the feel of it, but I can't. Yeah, I see it a little bit, but I spent a lot of time in that library. And also, my mother and her sisters had a lot of books. They had the Nancy Drew series and the Bobbsey twins. Those were, many of you probably never heard of either one of those, but they were very popular when my mother and her sisters were growing up, and even when I was growing up. And unfortunately, bookworms got to them, so there weren't as many left as there would have been, but I was still able to read a lot of them. And they were very nice girl books. They didn't bring up a lot of learning, but they were fun to read. But I went to the library and I started to read way beyond my years. And I at one point, I think I read every piece of fiction in that library. It wasn't a very big library, obviously, but I just read and read and read. And so I learned a lot, and more than likely I did get some awareness of what life was really all about. But it wasn't something I put together. It was kind of just like I would relate to things emotionally. I still do. My first reaction to everything is emotional. And now I'll say this, that it's not that way anymore. I said I was going to start comparing to where I was to where I am now. And no, I don't react emotionally to everything. That's not true. I do react on a soul level to many things. My intuition tells me this is right, this is truth. And if it doesn't do that, then I know it's not something I need to embrace. I just let it go. But at that time, I tended to react emotionally. And this is, by the way, from the time I was probably around 10, and I was able to go a lot of places by myself. And I definitely went to the library. And we didn't even have TV, by the way, until I was 8, and we didn't even own a TV. That was just in the apartment building that we were still living in when I was 8, one person had a TV, one family, and it was a 5-story building, so you can imagine. So we all would go in to watch the shows that were on. There was only maybe 3, and we would watch them in that apartment. So but by the time I was 10, we definitely had a TV, I think. Now that I think about it, maybe not. No, we didn't. So I did go to the movies a lot. It was very cheap. I think it was like 50 cents. And it was not far, and there were two theaters, I believe. And but I also, what I saw were all the musicals and all the romantic stories. That was my thing. I just pined for love. I was unbelievably romantic, and I would take on the part of one of the actresses, like I would imbue her character. I was really dramatic, and it was interesting because between reading and the movies, I lived in my own world a lot and in my imagination a lot. And then now I will continue to do that if I can remember. I realized that all of that did keep me from losing my mind, because at times I think I thought I was going to. But when I was that young, I didn't think I was going to lose my mind. But it did give me an escape because I needed one. I really, really, truly did. My mother's mother died, my grandmother, and then my grandfather died 9 months later. It was a lot of family drama, and then my mother was very, very unhappy, and we moved, and I just fortunately had this, I guess, this dream life, waking dream life that kept me going. And I did make new friends when we moved, and that was nice. And my brother was born when I was 10 also, so I became a second mother to him by the time I was like 11 and 12, because he needed that. My mother was not doing very well emotionally. So it was all very interesting, and it kept me very busy, but my dream life was always very active. And in school, when we moved to Queens. We only lived there for about a year and a half. I started to pay more attention, because between 10 and 12, when my mother was going through all that and things were going on at home and in the family, I didn't do very well in school. I was very busy trying to get boys to pay attention to me and write notes to my friends. And then I had a boyfriend that I talked to every night, because my father took my mother out after her mother left. First, my grandmother went into the hospital. Then she moved to my aunt's house, which was about 2 hours away. So my mother went out every night, and then after her mother died, she went out. He took her out. I don't even know where they went. But I was alone with my brother, and of course my brother was very young, so he's 10 years younger than I am. So he was asleep, and I would talk to this boy for hours on the phone. And he lived with his grandmother, and she would get annoyed with him, but she let him do it. And so that was my escape. And of course now I understand that I developed a lot of addictive behavior in order to survive, because I didn't know any better. I didn't know who I was and how to support myself. I had no clue, and I didn't get the support. My aunts were by then married, and they weren't there anymore locally, and they had their own children. When I was 7, both my cousins were born to different mothers, and so they were busy ladies, and we saw them, but they weren't around all the time. And my teachers were very supportive, and when we moved, I emulated 2 girls who were very good students, and I kind of copied them. So I started to do really well in school again, just like I had done in grammar school. And I had that competitive streak enough that I wanted to do as well as they did. And I even changed my handwriting to be like theirs. I literally did that. Fortunately, I didn't change my hand, which hand I wrote with, but I definitely changed my handwriting. And then I graduated from 8th grade. We had that year graduation in that school. And then we moved to Trenton, New Jersey, where I lived from the time I was 13 until 19 when I got married. And I'll tell that part later. But anyway, getting back to the addictive behavior, it was very interesting because I was addicted to boys. I was addicted to sweets still, always. But I started to watch that because I didn't want to be overweight. Naturally, I wanted attention from boys. And I also took care of my brother, so that kept me busy. And then also I was busy with schoolwork and with my two friends and a few other friends. And so and it was a very nice area. It was kind of open, and I even learned to ride a bike. I was terrified, but I did do it. So things were better, but there was still this hole. And again, my mother was almost non-existent emotionally. She didn't give my brother what he needed at all, and he was very young. He was only 3 or 2 when we moved there, and I took him with me a lot. And he started to curse because I used to go to the sweet shop, and the boys were, kind of tried to be smart Alex, and they would use profanity, and my brothers would mimic that, and he would go home and he would say things that were inappropriate. And I didn't ever do that, so my mother was like shocked. My father was shocked. It was actually very funny. And so I used to talk to my brother. I needed someone to talk to so badly, and he was a little tiny boy. And I used to tell him all my problems. He just, I don't even think he listened to me, but he was there. We even slept in the same bed because we didn't each have our own room, and we had this pull-out bed or something. So I probably talked him to sleep at night. And as I said, we only lived there a year and a half. And so I kind of was lost. I would have to say at that point I was lost, and I still read, but I don't think I read anything particularly profound, which I had done when I was younger. I didn't necessarily get attracted to spiritual books. I don't even know that I knew what they were. But I read such a varied selection of fiction, and I read some biographies and some, books that were very inspiring. And that was wonderful. I enjoyed that very, very much. And I even started to enjoy movies that were like that. So that as I got older, so that was good. I was always looking for something to fill that void. And it was not easy to find because there was no discussion. There was nothing around to talk to anyone on that level. I didn't hear it at home. I didn't hear it from anyone in the family. I didn't hear it at school. I didn't hear it from the teachers. It just wasn't available. I mean, I know it was, but nobody that I knew or was around had anything to say that really was inspiring or uplifting or gave you a different perspective, which is what we're doing now. We're getting a different perception about life and who we are and why we're here. And there was none of that. So it was just really surviving and trying to just live life. And that wasn't bad, but it didn't fill any void, that's for sure. So I think I'm going to leave off here. I think I accomplished my goal to some degree, and I will be back as soon as possible. I'm going to try to do a live video soon. I don't know when that will be, but in the meantime, if I don't, I'll do another one of these. Thank you so much. It was a joy to share with you, and thank you everyone on Facebook who has listened to these videos. I really appreciate it. God bless you, and I'll talk to you again. Bye-bye.